Hello there, and welcome to another podcast episode of Career Lab. Career Lab, of course, is the show that features America's career counselor, Judy LaCroix, the beautiful woman you're seeing right next to me on screen. And I'm Joel Siegel, business coach and the host and producer of the show. Together, we work on helping people develop their careers, modulate their careers, change their careers, and a lot of other things too that are related to careers. I hope all of you are following us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Android platforms, wherever you get your podcast, we're there, and the show titled Career Lab. So it's great to be back for another show. And hi, Julie.
Hi, Joel.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? It's great to see you as always.
It's great to see you as well. Yeah, even virtually. One of the things we're doing this year on Career Lab is having some of our guests return and tell us how they're doing. A lot of our viewers said, well, we'd like to know what happens. You could do such great work, and Julie does such great things, and you do some good things as well too, Joel. We'd like to find out what happens to the callers that you have and the people you help. So we've listened to you, audience, and we are having those callers back on, and we're starting today with one of the callers we had 6 to 8 months ago. Do you want to describe her, Julie, a little bit?
Yes. And just to frame it out from a career standpoint for our viewers and listeners, one of the keys to career development is a simple mechanism called decision making. Career unfolds over the lifespan because of a series of decisions at any given time. And a lot of times people jump ahead and think about a future decision when the correct decision is the one right in front of them. In Judy's case, the question was, should I stay or should I go? She had a wonderful job at a high profile company, a strong build in her career that brought her to a decision point of being courted by a major Fortune 50 organization to transition over there and run all of their corporate events and meetings. It was an incredibly flattering opportunity, and she didn't know if she should stay or go. That's a big decision. Unlike a lot of people, she didn't fall for the intoxication of that courtship, and she stayed. And so what we're going to hear today is, well, it's been 6 or 8 months now since we've had Judy on the show, and she's made her decision. And what has happened since then? What has transpired for her? How has her career moved into the next room and developed? And does she have any regrets about her decision? And what would she do if she had that decision in front of her again? So I'm excited for our listeners to hear how decisions really impact outcomes, and some thoughtful decision making and healthy decision making at every stage of career is the key to making that career walk forward in a healthy way.
Yeah, and we're going to have other guests in the future who also have had this same dynamic. We're going to have a guest on in the near future who took the opposite road to Judy and did make the change. And so we'll get a chance to hear from Judy today, what her experience was like. And then the other guest who we had on earlier did make the change, and we'll hear from her as well. So Judy, are you with us this morning?
I am. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's great
Judy.
to see you. Welcome back to Career Labs. We're honored to have you on because, as I said earlier in the promo for this segment, we're beginning to have some of our guests back on the show to find out what happened to them, because we have a lot of fans who've said, well, gosh, that was really interesting what you did, Joel and Judy and Julie. What happened? We'd like to hear, what went on with that person. So we're glad to have you back on. And Julie's kind of introduced what your challenge was and what we talked about when we had you on the first time. So maybe you want to pick up and tell us initially how you're doing, having stayed with your current company.
Yes. Well, quite a few changes since we last spoke. Since then, I was promoted to an executive director position. So in collaboration with a colleague of mine, we now oversee and run the department. I think last time I had maybe 2 or 3 reports. I now have going on 12. I just hired 2 more. So my team is growing. The scope of our business is growing. Our portfolio is more and more diverse and continues, an upward trend as well in terms of just annualized business. And so we just need really great people to, support all of that. And fortunately, I have been able to be promoted and have been given the opportunity to really lead a team overall and grow them. And I'm less in the weeds of the actual producing and design and strategy, and more in the space of total oversight of the department profitability, the training, the process management, and really mentoring and growing what we see as the next generation to kind of take over and grow in our industry. So I'm really doing what I love.
Well, before we jump in a little bit further, for our listeners, can you just share what sector you're actually in so they know what kind of work you're doing?
Absolutely.
Because they may not remember the last time you were with us.
Of course. So I am in the event marketing and strategy industry.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
So I need to jump in here just a little bit. So for our listeners and viewers, career has different mechanisms at different stages of our life. And somewhere mid-career, when you've been employed down a certain pathway, you've got about 20 years under your belt, that's when your skill set is fully formed. And Joel and I work with a lot of individuals at this juncture, just like Judy, who are at a critical decision. Not just any opportunity has presented itself, but a massive one. And it doesn't always come in the form of an external job offer in Judy, like it did in Judy's case. A lot of times it comes from within. Am I ready to step up, or should I just stay the course? Sometimes that becomes the decision. And there's a lot of fear for people in their mid 40s to early 50s, often, who just don't know whether or not they should move up to those executive ranks, or would they be an imposter? And it's usually not that you are an imposter. What it usually is that it's time to transition your skill set from learning from others to being the resource and being the expert. And that's a really important place where we almost all of us arrive. And Joel and I help individuals transition into that leadership role. So I just kind of want to set the stage, kind of mid-career, 20-year skill set, to kind of frame what's happened to you, Judy. Mm-hmm. So you got a promotion. You got a salary raise. You got a stronger leadership role. You were empowered to lead.
Correct.
Okay. And you're overseeing not just the tactics of the operations, but the actual strategy. You're looking at the spatial organization of your division. These are critical pieces of an executive level career that you have stepped into beautifully, and you didn't need that much coaching to do it. Now, you and I have worked together on the side a little bit to pull your package together to support your candidacy for this. And in doing that and seeing it on paper and hearing us, talk through it together, I think it really brought out those pieces that you have built up within yourself to give you the confidence to accept this charge. And so I'm very excited for you. And then aside from promotion, salary raise, a leadership role, and a more strategic role, you got the bonus of being in the weeds on the training and the profitability and the processes, which is undeniably something you're excellent at. And you do like to impart that kind of obvious end of day, you can see what you've done activity into your work. So that's kind of the second nice to have that you got out of that. Mm-hmm. But then there's this third thing. And the reason that I get so excited about kind of laying this out is because it's almost the way that your career choice has played out at this stage of your life and stage of your career development. It's textbook, because what's happening is that the very last thing that you said when you were responding to Joel was the most important thing for your future. You've already grasped the promotion, the leadership role, the strategy. You've already gotten, I get to train and I'm in charge of the budget and the processes. But here's the thing that you see, but maybe don't realize how impactful this is really going to be 10, 15 years from now. Mm-hmm. is you're going to be able to influence your industry and the new frontier of corporate meetings and events. And what are we going to be doing in this post-COVID world, and how our business is changing now that we have millennials at the helm of companies beneath us, and twice as many of them working than our generation. They have a different outlook on life and business and culture and career. So you're getting to see the shift and use all of your wisdom to tee it up for that next generation of individuals who are working beneath you professionally. And that's the really exciting thing. And at the juncture of that mid-career, mid-40s to early 50s, when you've built that skill set, the next 20-year phase, I'm telling you, it's textbook career theory, is to maintain what you've got and to give back with it and train others, teach others, impart your wisdom and expertise on the industry to help make it a smooth transition for the next layer of professionals. So I just wanted to kind of frame that out because it's just such a beautiful picture. I'm super excited for you. I want to hear a little more about the details of, what your day-to-day is like, and some success stories about some people on your team, and maybe some feedback from clients and things that touch your heart that make you know that you've made the right decision. And then what is ahead of you, and how can we help you with maybe the next decision?
So much has happened just, in the short time since we all were together, obviously. But what I'm really proud of is being in a position where I get to influence the next steps for those who are reporting up to me or through a director to me. And in the last 2 years, I have been able to promote senior managers to directors and event specialists to conference managers, and they are just performing beautifully. But what I appreciate about them so much is that they are just sponges and they want to learn. But my goal is to always make learning fun, right? But also to give them almost sort of this immediate satisfaction. Okay, we've just trained on this. We've just learned this. You were just on site with me. You saw me with the client. Now think about the next opportunity you have to put that in place, because what that does is it actually maps back to our roles and responsibilities architecture. So as you're learning these new things, as you're putting these practices in place, you're becoming a subject matter expert at certain things. You are ticking off the boxes to be able to be promoted to that next level. And at every level, what I require is that they are always mentoring, they're always training those new hires or those who are maybe at a junior level. So everyone right off the bat, no matter what role they're in, has that opportunity. And for me, that's what's so exciting, because they are empowered to be a leader no matter their job.
Almost like peer mentoring almost.
I just love it. And I love to see them get so excited about sharing what they've learned, because they have so many successes as well. I've also strategically made the decision, as I've brought on new directors, that they are very well seasoned, that they also prescribe to the same mentoring and growth philosophy that I have and that we have here at the company. And so within my new role, I've been given the opportunity to really take my time and identify those who would be really the best fit for what we're trying to grow here and what we are growing here. And so we've had some great successes in recent hires. I have 2 more starting August 1st that I'm thrilled about, that will also be in leadership positions. And then, these last 6 months, we have been on the road nonstop. I actually produced my last big show as an executive producer here in April, and it was beautiful. And the team, I can't say enough about them. I'm so proud. I just sort of feel like a den mother sometimes, because some of them are so new to the industry and new to the company, but they just we're like a family on site, and the client feedback was incredible. And I just couldn't be prouder of everything we've accomplished, even within these last 6 months. It's really been quite something.
Okay, well, let me jump in. That's really a
Incredible.
wonderful story. Yeah, I mean, obviously things are going great for you. One of the things that happens, and one of the reasons we wanted you to come back, and we want to have a few guests that are like you, is when you reach that decision point about leaving a company and moving on or not. That's a very critical juncture, as Julie talked about earlier. And to help our listeners with this, you chose to stay. Some people choose to go and take another opportunity. You had some phenomenal opportunities in front of you. You chose to stay, but some of the people that we work with who do choose to stay find that they don't do quite as well as you've done, that there's a little bit of a struggle. And we want to explore both of those sides. So I'm wondering, if we can dig a little bit into that, in the sense that Julie and I both work with executives who, when you choose to stay at the company you're at, you have some built-in advantages. You have a network. You have champions. You have colleagues. You know the road. You know what's going on. You know how to work towards accelerating and potentiating your career within that particular company because you're staying there. So, you've obviously taken advantage of those things, and a lot of people do. But for a lot of clients that Julie and I have, it doesn't work quite that well or quite that easily. And for a number of reasons. Some of those are exogenous, and they have nothing to do with the person. The company doesn't have money, or they struggle or whatever. But some of them do have to do with the dynamics. And I'm interested in your case, when you did choose to stay, what were some of your challenges in moving ahead and not feeling like you ended up getting stuck in the job when you'd passed on such a phenomenal opportunity? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I feel incredibly fortunate that I didn't have any challenges. And I didn't because, first of all, I have a vice president who is an amazing evangelist and supporter of mine. And she knows exactly where and how much value I add. And the fact that, I do love to help to grow the business, manage profitability, train the next generation, as we've been talking about, and all of those things. So there were just a few items on my list that I needed my executive leadership to understand that I required to be fulfilled, not only in my role, but to see that I'm really adding that next layer of value to the company and the division. And in order for me to be able to do that, I needed to be elevated within my org, within my company, and be able to make more autonomous decisions. And I needed to be trusted to make those higher level decisions. And I laid out why they should do that. And also, having 6.5 years here now, my relationships across the lines of business within the enterprise are pretty significant. And, I've grown those relationships, and people know they can trust me with basically anything, right? And so it just sort of came down to, let me present to you why you should consider all of the things I'm putting in front of you, because at the end of the day, in my heart, and Julie knows this because we've talked about it a lot, it was tearing me up to think about leaving the people that I had become so close to, and those who I was training and bringing up in the company. And I was thinking, who will take care of them if I leave? And I know that kind of sounds like, I'm putting myself on a pedestal or something, like no one can train like I can, but my relationships with them are so ingrained personally, professionally. I had to find a way to figure this out because I couldn't leave them. So I think my company also realizing just my loyalty, not just to the brand, but to the people, was of consideration as well. And so I got to do what I love, and I couldn't be more grateful for that recognition and their trust and their confidence in me. And so then the real work began. And so, here we are, but it's fantastic.
So I want to comment on the relationships and the training and what would happen to my team if I left.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you emphasize that and that you are able to embrace how important that is to you and make that part of your decision-making mechanism. There was for all of you, career theory geeks like me out there, there was a very, very pivotal longitudinal study done at the University of Minnesota years ago. And we published real data on what the career values are and how individuals prioritize them and how those change over the lifetime. And relationships with coworkers is one of them. If I remember correctly, there are like 32 of them. But it's important to understand what is important to us and what are our values at any given time in our career, because they do shift over the arc of our careers. And it's important to shift our decision-making style with the shifting of our value system. For instance, early in your career, you may value, income. In the middle of your career, you may value stability. Towards the end of your career, maybe you value status or relationships with coworkers or whatever it is. And you make your career decisions based on the ability for that particular role to satisfy that need in the individual. And in this case, obviously, there are lots of other values that are important to you, but relationships with coworkers sounds like it was the prominent value that needed to be satisfied, that meant the most to you, and that allows you to drive all of your heart and soul and mind into your work. So I just want to call that out because that's a really important thing for you to understand in terms of like breaking down how you made your decision, looking back at it retrospectively. And then the second piece I wanted to talk about is just more for everybody's curiosity. Did you tell your company that you had another offer coming in and say, I'd like to negotiate a new position for myself internally? Otherwise, I'm going to have some serious conversations externally. Tell us about how that all came together.
I told my boss right away. I told her right away. And I have the same relationships, I think, for the most part, that people know they can come and talk to me. And I always say, all right, step into the vault. I'm going to shut the virtual door and it's just you and me and it goes nowhere. And she and I have the same kind of relationship. And so I told her, I said, hey, I want to talk to you about something. And you're not leaving, are you? I said, well, I want to talk to you about this offer. And I told her all about it. I told her about the company. I sent the JD to her. I showed her everything. And I said, what really gets me psyched about this is being able to influence real change at a company that needs it, that needs processes, that needs systems. And by the way, that has a very small department of people who are burned out, and they need to see what it takes to actually produce well with balance. And these are the things that get me excited. How do we figure all of that out together, right? And so she said, what do you need? So we talked about that together. And of course, she in her executive leadership role also has the benefit of knowing, right, some other things that are going on at the C-suite level and future planning and so forth. And so she went to our EVP and said, here's what's going on. Here's what I'd like to do. And he said, fine.
So let me jump in here for a minute, Judy, because time is going to get short here in a second. I wanted to highlight this, a very important what you just said. So really, because this is important for the rest of our listeners. So in some ways, you were able to strategically tee up your own promotion by sharing with a colleague what you felt, number one, was an option for you, the other option you were looking at. And then number two, some of the tools you might need to enhance the work you were doing at your current company. So what you did strategically was you laid out on the table kind of like, if we're going to get down to brass tacks here, this wasn't what you said, but the behind the scenes meaning was, look, I have another offer on the table. It's very significant, substantial, and I love it here and I'd like to stay, but there's also some things I'd like to achieve here. And you gave your colleague the keys to, number one, knowing that she better move to keep you, and number two, what it was going to take to keep you. And essentially that's what happened. Now, not everyone can be as successful at that strategy as you are, but that is a great strategy if you can pull it off. And you obviously pulled it off. So great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
go ahead, Julie. Sorry.
You leveraged your professional equity and your reputation equity in the company in a way that actually was quite soft, in my opinion, because you said, this is what what I bring to the table, but I have more to offer. And I want, this needs to come out of me, and I'm going to develop into it. I'd love to develop into it here, or I'm going to have to look elsewhere. And the fact that you looked at this as more of an opportunity for your own professional development and who wants it, instead of, oh, I just have this other great opportunity and it's more money and it's a bigger name and this and that. You didn't go for the glitz and glam of the offer. You went for the place that felt like home, and somehow was able to influence them to see that there was more executive level in you than they had embraced. And it sounds like it was a perfect confluence of the amount of time you'd been there. The industry was opening back up. There was some money coming in, probably some new clients, probably a lot more room in the company for needing to hire in some executive level people. So instead of hiring from outside, the promotion opportunity was there. So it was it sounds like it was a really good timing, but you did play it very, very well.
Yeah. And also, I think we want to say, especially for our listeners who aren't quite as successful as you are, I think there was another element in your situation, and that was that your company was probably a pretty healthy company in terms of the way their culture was and the way they worked, because the way you've described both the last time you were here, especially, as well as this time, described your relationships and your dynamics. I think it's important to say that you're fortunate to be in a company that's probably pretty healthy, one in which political dynamics do not, subvert people's goals and achievement needs. And it's very important because, and we have to say this too, so while our listeners don't wonder what's wrong with them, a lot of companies are not that healthy. And in fact, a lot of political dynamics at those companies are not good. And a lot of executives such as yourself, Judy, feel like they bump into a ceiling of one kind or another. And even though they're wanting to bring the same things that you're wanting to bring, they're not able to because of reasons that have to do with the way their company structure, their executives, or political dynamics, or other things. In your case, that wasn't going on, and you happened to be at a healthy company, and therefore you were able to exercise the elements Julie has just talked about, and it worked well for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say that I'm certain there are plenty of politics going on in and around my company at some level somewhere. Sure. And in fact, I know that there are in some lines of business, but my perspective and my approach to that is to just not get involved in that at all. I just steer clear of anything that is going to disrupt the focus that we have to be bigger, better, stronger, more successful in every single way you can think of. And so I just really compartmentalize, or I try at least every day to compartmentalize any outside noise or anything that's going to, cause any disruption, and just keep people focused and as happy as they can be and not worry about it. And especially my team knows if they're hitting a roadblock, they go to their directors or they just come directly to me, and we just fix it, because we are in a very flexible and agile place right now, and we can just do that. We can make things happen much more quickly. So,
Judy, you have a very mature approach to being able to ignore that noise and stay focused. I want to commend you for that. And also, the way that you handled this is a testament to your ability to build internal relationships. For our listeners and viewers out there, I have seen people successfully leverage promotions in the face of outside job offers over and over and over again. And this is very much the formula for it. Have some professional equity built up, know what you need to do to professionally develop yourself to the next level, be able to articulate that and leverage those great relationships that you have inside the company. That's really the formula. And you've landed it, Judy. We're super happy for you.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm just thrilled they wanted to keep me because I just couldn't be happier here. So it worked out.
We're very happy to have you come back. I mean, Julie summed up well one of the reasons why we wanted to have you, because you have tapped into that formula and done it well. And we're really grateful that you came back and shared your story. It's not only a model for others, but it's kind of inspiring in many ways to see people who made any kind of a choice and were able to be as dominantly successful as you have been. So it's been great having you back on the show. We're going to keep in touch with you. It's really been great to see you. And, everything about you has really been very inspiring this morning. So we'll let you go, but we want to—
Well, wait a second. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
This is America. We're capitalists. If anybody out there listening or watching needs a corporate meeting or event, look up Judy on LinkedIn.
There we go. Absolutely.
Awesome.
And I'm glad we did that. So Judy, thanks for being with us. We'll let you take off right now. We have to move on to our next guest, and we hope to see you again soon. Thanks so much.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Judy.
Take care.
All right, bye.
So we're back. Julie and I, as we always do, of course, are going to talk about our guests and what the experience was that we had. And Julie, once again, thank you for not only bringing Judy back on the show, but also for the work you did with her, because obviously your work with her was seminal in helping her to make what for her turned out to be a great decision. I think I pointed out in the segment, not everybody has it quite that easy, either with that decision or, with the decision to stay or go, or with elevating their position within the company if they stay. But she was one who really did well.
She was. And it is about timing and situation and how you play it. Like you've said, there a lot of people haven't been successful doing that, but I have also seen people who have. So I would say there's at least a 50-50 shot. If you've been in the company a few years, they see your value and the company is expanding and growing and is profitable, there's a very good chance that they will make room for you. The unemployment rate is so low right now that it's so hard to find good employees, and leverage that to your advantage, everybody. A lot of times, especially in a smaller company, they may not realize how hard it is to find a good employee. You can remind them and say, look, there aren't a lot of good candidates out there, so you might as well take a look at me. This is what I think I can bring to the table. I know you see me as a manager, but I'm really a director. I have the potential to do this, and here's my plan for that. Those conversations actually usually fall on open ears, especially in a tight labor market like this one. And we've been in a tight labor market since 2012. So,
yeah, I'm glad you said that. You're right, kiddo. I mean, I think everything you're saying is absolutely accurate. And to help our listeners, one of the things I do is that what a lot of people don't know how to do is they don't know how to leverage within their own company. So one of the important things that I train in is helping people understand how to leverage. So what does that really mean? What do we have to do? Well, what you need to do is make a spreadsheet of your contacts within the company, how they can help you, what kind of conversations you need to have with them. I do this with every client that I'm doing this with. And lo and behold, once clients begin to build their own champions and build their own profile within the company, they have a better chance of being able to stay there and to leverage what they've got than having to move on. It's amazing how many people who work in a company don't really get that. It's just something that I think we don't normally train ourselves on, Julie, but you and I know that it's such a key thing. I'm working with a client right now who actually you've worked with as well, Julie, who, that's a big thing. I'm having her make a spreadsheet of all her connections. And as she's doing that, she suddenly realized, wow, I can really make some noise here. I can really, have people understand who I am and more that what my department needs and all those kinds of things. So I think we kind of gained that by listening to Judy and having her on for that segment. And if our listeners can take away that from that segment, that would be really great for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This was a really fun show to have her back and to kind of hear how people progress. Every single caller that we've ever had has had some kind of decision right in front of them. And here is a really good opportunity for us all to break down her decision of 6 or 8 months ago and look at the outcome of it and reflect on how it played out. I'm sure it wasn't as easy for her as she's remembering it. It just ended up playing out quite well.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of our listeners are probably thinking exactly that. Well, wow, I don't know how that happened for her, but for me it's really hard, because you and I know, Julie, we have clients in our meetings every day that are really, really struggling. And I want to take a minute to acknowledge that. I mean, this particular client had a wonderful success story and, was able to do exactly the things she talked about, and it worked out well. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to have her back. But we don't want a lot of our listeners to lose faith and feel like that it's not going to happen. There are a lot of steps that you can take if you decide to stay in the company, or if you decide to leave, but especially if you decide to stay, that you can help yourself to improve your position and to probably get ahead within your own company. And if you really can't, if you're really bumping up against some serious problems, then that's a sign that you need to think about an exit. We have lots of clients that have that situation. I have clients where the companies themselves are struggling from a business model sector point of view, and those clients are looking elsewhere, and they're probably laterally moving.
Well, and for all of our viewers and listeners out there, Joel, who would like to have this conversation with their company, but they don't know how to have the conversation, that's an interpersonal communication barrier. Difficult conversations are difficult. And if you need some coaching and some guidance and direction, reach out to us. We can help you with that. Joel, you're the best at helping people with getting through those barriers in front of them, whether it's just forming the question the right way or thinking about their stance coming into that conversation a little differently. Joel is somebody who anybody listening today or viewing today should be reaching out to for a coaching session about how do I go ahead and approach that promotion, because I really am ready for it. I just don't think the company knows it, and I don't know how to frame that.
Well, that's a business coaching that we both do is all about. I mean, it's helping people. You alluded to in the segment with wonderful Judy that, you alluded to the words imposter syndrome. And I wanted to, just for our listeners, define what that is a little bit, because I'm glad you used it. A lot of times when you get ready for a move, whether it's internal or external, but especially with internal moves, you suddenly are confronted with people at a higher level, and you suddenly don't know if you really belong there, if you really have the skills, and you begin to feel like, again, an imposter. That's why, of course, Julie used that term. And so one of the things that Julie does so very well, I do it as well, is to help people understand how to deal with that feeling. Because most of the time, that's not real. Most of the time, those people do have the skills. They just don't know how to, as Julie's talked about, and I've talked about in this segment, present them. So that's what Career Lab is all about. And we're excited to help you all do that.
Joel, how many executives have we saved from not becoming an executive?
I don't know the number. That's a good question.
Hundreds. I mean, they all work with me in career counseling, and then they're like, but I can't do it. And they hit their forehead on the wall, and I'm like, oh, yes, you can.
That's why we're here for you folks. That's what career coaching and career counseling is all about. That's why we have the show, and we're happy to be with you and to talk about these things. Let's take a little break, and we'll be back soon.